Hey everyone, CWD Music Reviews here. I'm CWD and this is going to be a music review of the new Wild Nothing album. Life of Pause. Before we get into this review, I have a very important announcement to make about this channel. Not only are we climbing in subscribers steadily, I think that's cool. Last I checked, we're at 27. I didn't think we'd get that far within a matter of 2 months. But also, we are getting a new camera. You won't have to deal with this iPad quality, so that's going to be pretty cool. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to be the same with editing. I imagine it's just as simple as just taking the camera, plugging it into the computer, taking that file, and just putting it into the editing app that I already downloaded on iTunes. But still, this is good. We're going to have some better quality videos, and I'm looking forward to getting it and playing around with it. Hopefully I'm going to use it regularly for reviews. So there's that. So anyway, let's get on with this Wild Nothing review. Wild Nothing is the psych pop, dream pop, indie rock project fronted by Mr. Jack Tatum. He's pretty much one of those artists that have this band, have this project act, where he does all the music, all the creation and all the recording pretty much by himself for the most part, and he has this band that goes on tour with them. And with this band, they pretty much do different interpretations of these tracks. Live versions are going to vary from what you're going to hear on these albums, like on Nocturne and this album in particular. Since that they will be at Shaky Knees this year, I'm most certainly looking forward to what it is Wild Nothing is going to do with these tracks. Especially since I personally think that this album is really great. I didn't expect to like this album as much as I did, but I, do. Now, this is a 11-track affair, almost 50 minutes in length, and there's like a good chunk of dream pop and indie pop stuff going on, with like influence coming from like 80s synth pop. The synth is a prominent instrument on this album, along with these echoey guitar, driving bass, drums that, while they're not really that punchy, they really do help drive the track and really keep the songs going. What I'm pleased with about this album is the production is not focused on a sound per se. It's focused on the songs, which I think the Dive album, and I know people still give me hell for mispronouncing their band name when I review their album, is the Izar. Unlike the Dive album, these tracks are focusing on good composition, not just good compositions, but really solid compositions. There's not really a single track on this album that I dislike or I think is less than good. So let's start off with the first track, Reichpop, which I think is kind of a play on words with krautrock, which, if it is, that's pretty interesting. You get this like ambient intro on the track that comes in and gives you this relaxed sensation before this marimba comes in and starts picking the track up in terms of tempo, and I think that's really cool. And then you get an idea of what a chunk of these tracks are going to sound like with these really echoey guitars, these really addictive bass parts. Some simple drumming, but the drums are still pretty cool, and they adapt with the composition over time. The reverb on this track, the reverb on all these tracks with the vocals, they don't drown Jack out, but they certainly add layer to what would have been just kind of generic dream pop vocals, especially when on this track he says, "The less you say, the less you get wrong." And I think that kind of sets the several omnipresent themes on this album about, I guess, introversion, rejection, maybe some love. He's not really saying anything so profound on this track lyrically that I feel I need to bring up, but there's a lyrical layer that I definitely plan on returning to with this album. The track Lady Blue, it goes into after that. There's a really cool 80s synth pattern. There's actually a plenty of 80s synth patterns that I like on this album, but this one in particular I think is pretty cool. The vocal melodies are nice. I certainly enjoy the vocal melodies on this track and several tracks here. This track's about 5 minutes in length, but it doesn't feel like it's grading over time, especially when there's like this really spacey middle before it picks back up and changes stylistically and starts gliding itself out really well. There's one thing that this album has, it's some nice builds and nice ways to just end tracks off entirely. Then there's a Woman's Wisdom that goes into sort of a ballad-like direction, and I think this track has like some really cool echoey piano bits and like some echoey guitar on this track. He sounds very sincere on this track. I can't say he's trying to seduce this woman, but he's definitely trying to win her over, win her disposition over. There's also really not like a, a visceral guitar solo or anything like that, but a nice sweet guitar solo on this track. And we get Japanese Alice, which changes styles altogether with like this really driving instrumentation. I'm like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? And then it goes into this more mid-paced instrumental palette before it goes back into that driving instrumentation. The drums are, the sustained guitar is sounding alarming, so I think that's pretty cool. I think that what I love about this track the most is how it glides seamlessly into the title track, Life of Pause. There's another synth pattern I enjoy a lot. The chorus is catchy. It's a really cool track. The synth pattern is also syncopated with the bass really well, so that's a nice adage. What I think is cool about this album, and I think a lot of dream pop and shoegaze and all that other stuff needs to start thinking about, is nice spacey sound is cool and all, but you're only winning half the battle if that's all you're going for. You need to start throwing in a lot of layers and variation amongst your album, especially on Alien, which starts off soft, but then it builds and builds and builds really well. I love the refrain on this track. Make me feel like an alien. Echoey guitar is pretty present. I especially like this track, the way it builds and builds. Then we get to the second longest track on the album, To Know You, which has like this kind of synth pattern that I think is really interesting. I like the driving bass on this track and many other tracks on this album. The guitar adding a good layer to this track. It's actually pretty cool how he's able to take tracks that are 5 minutes or 6 minutes and keep them engaging from beginning to end, which is actually a very rare feature for dream pop, keeping tracks engaging, and he accomplishes this really well, I believe. When we get to my least favorite track, TV Queen, there's like this, I don't know if this is a violin or a guitar or a synth or some weird combination of the three, but it's certainly cool. I just think that it's a bit too standard in terms of like the other tracks on this album. In a verse, chorus ordeal, whereas the other tracks were more so just not that much per se. Like, it doesn't like stick to that formula all the way through. I think there's some really cool sax. Chorus is catchy, but still it's probably my least favorite track on the album. Whenever I actually has a really echoey piano and actually has some more saxophone on this track. What makes this sax different on this track is that it's more so in the background and adding to a layer versus TV Queen, which has like this lone saxophone part that didn't really add much to that track. But this track, the sax is actually pretty cool. It adds to the spacey atmosphere it's trying to go for. The track Adore actually kind of reminds me of like some kind of Hey Jude kind of thing. These like jittery piano that starts up. Also the case with the closing track, Love Under My Thumb. These like jittery piano going about, and there's like this acoustic guitar that I like a lot, which is kind of different. This track builds really well. The vocal melody actually reminds me of like some Flaming Lips in a way. Then the closing track, Love Under My Thumb, we get this few combination of piano, sax, and guitar just kind of jittering about in the intro before giving us this acoustic guitar again. This is actually the longest track on the album, and again, he's able to pull this off really well, the whole 6 minutes and 12 seconds, I think, and really give us a definitive closer. So overall, not really anything negative I can say about this album, honestly. Initially, when I was going to review this album, I was just going to give this somewhat of a lower score than what I was going to give it now, but this thing grew on me quickly, and I couldn't stop it. I can honestly say that While Nothing has made me into a fan. Reichpop thing that they're trying to go for, that they have accomplished, not really a genre that I cater to all that often. I mean, there's just some, you know, small cases of that, but I can't say that it's often. But I'm definitely going to be looking forward to what these guys are going to be doing next, and I'm definitely going to be listening to their back catalog a little more, because this is intriguing that they were able to just take these compositions and take this sound, take this genre, and just make a really good album. At least that's what I think they did. And you know what? That's all that matters with these reviews. Yeah, this is just a really good album, and I recommend to anybody that likes this genre of music, or maybe they're not sure about the genre of music and they want to, like, dip their toes in it, or just outright dive into it. As long as that dive isn't into the literal band dive, you know. This album is a plus 2.5 out of plus 3. I know it surprises me that I love this album as much as I do, but still, good album. Definitely going to be looking forward to anything they drop next, and definitely looking forward to the set when they come to Shaky Knees this year. If you give this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? And what was your reasoning behind liking or disliking it? And what should I consider listening to and reviewing next? NET is coming up in a few days, since February is going to be over, and I have some albums that I'm not going to review at all, so get ready for that. This is CWD Music Reviews here, signing off.